Hi, everyone. I'm Betty. I'm going to be today's moderator for the post-screening talk. Um, I'm an architect based in Hong Kong, and we run a architecture studio. One of the reasons that I've initiated this screening with the support of Asia Society today was because I used to work at OMA with Ram Koolhaas. And the filmmaker Franz and the architect in charge, Federico, who will join us later after the film screening, was my colleague back in the year 2009. Yeah. So it's really a great pleasure to see what they're doing right now and to bring this documentary to Hong Kong. It's the first time this film is shown in Asia. I'm so glad you guys all made time on a Saturday afternoon to come see this film. The film will be around 45 minutes. And then we will do around 1 hour of discussion, but feel free to really kind of shoot your question when the Q&A happens, because Franz and Federico, they're really excited to see what the Asian audience think in this part of the world. So a little bit of a background. This is a house that was built, it was completed in 2023, but it took quite a while. Ram Koolhaas' last house was done in 1998. The famous Maison Bordeaux. During that period of the 90s, Ram Koolhaas and OMA built 3 houses, namely Villa de Ava, Dutch House, and Maison Bordeaux, and all 3 of them have become classic in architecture. Almost 30 years later, this house was done. It has been a while, and that's one of the reasons why I myself was very excited, and the reason I'm doing the screening was I texted Franz and I was like, hey, congratulations on your documentary. And he's like, hey, do you want to do a curator preview? I was like, sure. And he sent me a link. I watched the film and I thought, how interesting, because it's not just about the product of the house, but it's about the process. And I think it is one of the most important part of architecture is to understand how things are getting done. And architecture took a long time. Usually it takes years to get one building completed. And this is sort of really like a behind the scene of how a mastermind with his team come together with a client that is super curious, working with Ram Koolhaas himself, in a plot that was actually only less than 15 meters wide. But after all the regulation and setback, the house itself has become probably around 4 meters wide. Yeah. And that is really interesting because you can also sort of imagine, despite it is in the countryside, it's at Zell MZ, which is Lake Zell in Austria, around 1.5 hour drive from Salzburg. It is in a very serene kind of lake environment, but its kind of tightness, I personally couldn't help but start thinking of the tightness in Hong Kong. So I think it's really fitting in a way to bring this film in to show the audience today. So we'll sit back, enjoy the film, and then afterwards, Federico and Franz will come in through Zoom and we will start a conversation. And I also would like to dive a little bit in their own career. They are very much related in the kind of history and building up of OMA with Ram Koolhaas. And I think that will be a very interesting point of departure for the conversation for you all. Thank you so much. Yeah. Franz was taking a lot of beautiful pictures of the models that we were working on in the office. And Federico was my ex-colleague at OMA, and I found him one of the most reliable colleague ever. Do you remember there was a crisis that we have for a project, and he was not part of the project team, and he came and was like, okay, let me help you guys with this model. So with this great friendship that we have cultivated for over 15 years, right now. I'm so glad that Franz and Federico agreed to do this post-screening talk and do this screening in Hong Kong. I guess I will jump straight into asking a few questions, having a conversation, and then I'll open up the floor for Q&A. And my first question is to Franz. A very simple, straightforward one to begin with. Why is there this documentary? How did it start?
Well, before I answer, can I thank you first for organizing this, for making this happy, Betty, with your team of Collective Studio, but also, of course, the Asia Society who is hosting this event. So I'm very happy with that, and I'm also very happy to see you all joining and coming for the screening. It means a lot to me. So what was the question again?
I'm curious.
Why the
Yeah,
film?
why?
Why
Yeah.
the film? Yeah. Yeah, well, as I photograph a lot of the models of OMA, usually to be used in their communication when doing competitions. And once I was shooting for a competition, and one of the younger architects came in and he said, "Do you have 15 minutes to shoot this model when you're done here?" And I said, "Yes, of course." So I went to that model. It's apparently some quick thing, maybe, just a small project of the office. And I saw this kind of incomprehensible, strange sculpture. It was a cutout of in the mountains. It was really a hard to understand thing on first sight. So I said, "What is this?" Well, it's a house that REM is doing. It's really a REM pet project, and I was immediately interested, of course, because the previous house I had the honor to be to be working in for a full day was a house in Bordeaux, and it was over 20 years, I think almost 25 years earlier. So yes, I went to REM and I said, "Can't we do something with this project?" And that's where it started.
So in a way, it was you who took initiative to suggest this project. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah.
And Federico, I would first like to introduce Federico a little bit. I believe, Federico, now you run your own company, architecture design company in Milan.
Yeah.
And Federico has been a very long time collaborator at OMA, particularly directly with RAM. And I just want to do a little shout out because Federico was the main architect who worked on Foundation Prada from concept to its completion for a long time. And I'm always really in awe with Federico's kind of spirit and power in making architecture, particularly even to the tiny little details. And I'm sure you have seen it in the documentary. He's always talking about like building things in the documentary. I have a question about the handrail comment in the movie, but then I would really like to ask a little bit about how you get to participate in this project because Federico left OMA after Foundation Prada, and you were also working with an ex-OMA colleague Alejandro in Rotterdam, and we collaborated on 2 competitions. And then I saw you working with Ram again on this project, and now you run your own firm. And I would really like to hear a little bit about also on your end, how was this initiated, and how was that few years, Federico? It must not be easy.
So, hi to everyone, first of all, and hi, Franz. Thanks for inviting me for this talk. Yeah, so basically, after I've finished the Prada Foundation in 2018, I've joined OMA in New York, and then I was there working on other projects, but then somehow things didn't go according to the plan. So I decided after a while to come back to Europe and basically started doing projects on my own together with Alessandro and a friend of mine. And basically, while I was back in Europe, Ram contacted me saying that he would have liked if I could have helped on a project ongoing at the office at the moment. And basically, I knew about the project because when I was just finishing Fondazione, he asked me about a mysterious project in Austria. And so we had some quick conversation at that time. Then I left for the US. And when I'm back, the project started already, but basically I joined the team. When, let's say, the DD phase was just started. So I didn't participate in the initial concept, but then throughout all the other phases, and I followed entirely the construction sites. So basically, Ryan was asking me for some help on that project.
Ah, I see. So you started participate during design development, almost reaching construction phases. Federico, I was actually reading your website, and I wanted to pry a little bit. You as an architect, you made this statement on your website that you believe that architecture is about build works, and that you seem to be not very happy at this moment about the so-called academic approach of architecture. And I want to pry a little bit on this because while watching this documentary, and you and I both sort of grew up in the school of OMA, and we heavily believe in process, right? The idea of research, of like kind of finding new ways of doing the thing that you already know very well, but try to start from a piece of white paper, let's put it that way. Process for me personally as an architect has always been very, very important. And sometimes it does fall into this hole of being too academic, right? Finding a concept. I want to ask, what do you mean that architecture is about build work only? While you yourself also practice a lot of kind of more academic way of thinking, conceptualization. Do you mind to share with us a little bit your thought and maybe tie a little bit into this idea of build work versus the so-called intellectual, particularly with this project? Because this project is very intellectual, right? But at the same time, also very technical, contextual. So if you can elaborate a little bit your point of view on such.
Yeah, so basically what I've stated on my website is about consideration that it grew over the time. The moment I realized that nowadays architecture seems to be more and more conceptual and intellectual practice, and more architects are basically doing architecture through a variety of conditions, such as writing, curating, exhibiting, and all sort of activities, almost forgetting that I believe architecture has to be built, meaning the moment you realize and conceptualize a project, then only the moment such a project is confronted by reality and wins the confrontation with the reality, then you are sure you can call yourself an architect, meaning it's only the moment you are able to defend a project throughout all the process and till its completion, and the completion is coherent with what you have thought and conceptualized before, then you are sure that project is good. So in a way, that statement for me is a sort of critic to the current way of conceiving architecture from the majority or from a lot of people. And I definitely want to be someone that he is able as architect to bring a concept till the reality.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
And
was, yeah, please.
yeah. No, so just to finish, and basically the Austrian house in a way represents a perfect samples, because on its own it's a extremely conceptual project, almost an impossible task. So the moment projects remain on paper, we are all very good architects. We are all intellectuals. We are all conceptual people. But then, if you really are able to make it happening, and you can verify that what you have thought is it works for real, then that's the best condition, and somehow you can also get the best out of architecture.
Thank you so much for offering your deeper thoughts, because I think that also bring me into the work that Franz does. I don't think a lot of people here knows that Franz actually started working on a lot of beautiful models with OMA, which I call the prime time of OMA in the 90s, early 2000. Franz, you went to school in Design Academy in Eindhoven, and you were doing communication design at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly react on
Please, please.
Federico's story? Because we never talked about it too much. Of course, I saw Federico operate in, he did much more than defending the concept in a way. But for me, the key sentence in the film is really in the beginning, where Federico says, "So it's the quality of the concrete that that counts for me. That is important." I think it's really in there, because without that, this complete concept would have failed. Would not work. So yes. Okay. Yeah. No, I did communication design, which of course is not really an education for a model maker. But I saw it, it was just part of my practice. And I think that what Vincent de Rijk and me do, we studied together. So that's also, we found each other in the workshop and respected each other's position on design and on hands-on working. So we decided to start a workshop together, and I was doing perfume bottle design as one of my for a French company. So something completely different, and I think that there it is also really the start. With REM, because we were model builders. We just started off, and we needed to make some money, and so through other models we came in touch with REM, and he saw that we were designers, not model makers, but that we sought for expression of other things, of other qualities than just a reproduction of drawings in the models. And so he started really challenging us, and yeah, we have always seen it as a creative endeavor that had much more in it than just model building. For us, it was also always a design project.
That's exactly what I wanted to get into. Thank you, Franz, because I feel like what Federico was also sharing in terms of the build work does give a lot of credits to the process also of the conceptualization, which then I found it very interesting, because today we are looking at a documentary, which is sort of so-called the end product, but then is a depiction of the process. And then, of course, Franz has this, for me, amazing career of starting off with communication design and then participating as a designer in model making at that moment with OMA, with a bunch of architects. And you put it really well that you guys are seen as not model makers, that are creating a replica of a piece of architecture in a scale. But for me, model has a lot to do with a representation of an idea in a physical form. And that was one of the most amazing models that I have ever seen coming out from the OMA school in the 90s, early 2000. And Franz was quintessentially part of the team member that has also conceptualized all these ideas together with another means, not being so-called an architect. But then, how do you start becoming or taking photographs, because then your next step was becoming a photographer, and then now you make film. I'm really interested in this idea of how your career evolved and still very intrinsically connected to architecture, and that I will link it back to, of course, the documentary. Yeah.
Well, I have been photographing always, but I became a photographer in the realm of architecture and specifically also models by stopping building models. So I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. Always working in a dusty environment. The drawings were always so late that we had to work nights to get things finished, because you're at the end of part of a process, namely just before committing it to submitting it to a jury somewhere. So I decided I would stop doing that, and specifically Rem was very disappointed, and I was thinking, okay, so it's been nice. It was around the year 2000. We've worked with OMA for a long time, and sorry to see you go, but let's go and do other things. But it didn't take long for Rem to phone me and asked me to do a model in photography, and I was kind of surprised, but I did, and that's where like this new field started. So.
Thank you. I really am very interested in your career. Sorry for keep prying on this. And I feel like it's also a very interesting coincidence you mentioned that you were asked to just quickly photograph the model of the Austrian house, and you found this opportunity and or moment that is like, why don't we do a documentary? Why? Why did you think it was interesting to do a documentary of this particular project? Because that's not the only model you have ever photographed, right? So, what was the essence of it that makes you feel like there is a process that you potentially want to document through film, not just photography?
Well, I must say, I think in retrospect, there have been several models where I thought, well, this would be nice to photograph it in reality or to document it in another way. But they're always far away or very long processes, so we never got there. But in this case, I thought I really wanted to pursue this because I think that to me, it's also interesting that in an office where most projects are really big, often quite political, or in other ways have a great complexity, that the focus is on a small project and a personal project, not just for Rem, but also because it's with a private client. And that, of course, provides a different story, which is also about relationships between a client and an architect. And of course, these relations are always there, but I think for a film and also for a kind of personal connection to a project, this is an added layer that I was interested in. And yeah, I wasn't disappointed in it, and it was really funny because I thought this is going to be something special. So I first proposed to Rem to film the house when it was ready, and Rem pulled this very, very ugly face when I said that, and I knew what was coming. um, because he said, why, when it's built, can't we do the process? And so that's, and that's also where the problem started, of course, because I had been following a building process before, which was in Holland, and I knew that I could, stand for hours in a gridlock, come there, and then say, well, it's not going to happen today because the concrete is also kind of kept in traffic, so we'll do it another day. And to me, yeah, Austria is also quite a travel still. So, and of course, there was no budget. So these were things that made it seemingly impossible to do a long-term project following the building site. So Rem proposed to just give children in the neighborhood these throwaway cameras so they could do it. And of course, that was just that was not a serious. I guess that was not really serious, but just to challenge me, find a solution. And so I came up with these security cameras that
I see.
that we installed there. Yeah.
Oh, indeed.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So again, process because of the interest of REM, but also the general OMA focus on things. And funny thing is that now afterwards, people say, "Why weren't you there at the designing phase?" So.
And why?
Yeah, because I saw the model at some point, and of course the designing was still going on. But I, same as Federico, I think that through building and all the discussions on the building site and the problems that arise there, they point back to everything before, because it's about defending what's happened there before, about refining what happened there before, but also about building on what happened there before. So lots of choices are just left open for the moment that you can see something. It's much easier to talk about colors and materials when you're standing there, even when it's dark and all still rough looking. You're at that point. You see light. You see. And you hold up these samples. So these are really, I think, essential moments in the designing process as well.
Franz, did you edit the film yourself?
Yes, I did.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reason I'm asking is I also found it very interesting. You say one of the reasons that you're interested in doing this documentary is to also depict that relationship between the client and the architect and everyone around it, right? And Federico, do you think the film depict the situation and relationship accurately?
I do think, yes. Although it doesn't reflect minimally all the effort and the struggle and the desperation it took, or just in a little part. Yeah.
Do you mind to
But
share a little bit? Oh, sorry, keep going. Yeah.
no, yeah, I just wanted to say that I think the movie as a tool, or filming as a tool in a construction site process, it's extremely beneficial, because it shows one of the most crucial parts of architecture, which is, let's say, the human factor, So, which is also another reason why I think architecture should be built, because it's only on site that you can perceive this aspect, meaning that the architecture is made from people, by people, at all levels. So, and in a way, France movie depicts it in a very good way.
I was wondering whether you can, I mean, I would really love to hear about the process and the hardship, particularly as an architect working on this project.
Mm.
You know, I really love how in the film you mention a moment to Ram, you think it's an ambiguous house, an ambiguous
Mhm.
project, yeah. Which I think it completely resonate, at least to myself, in that understanding that it is a very simple looking house, but it is so complex. There were these moments that the fireplace is inside outside, you know, the everything is sort of sunken in a way to preserve the view. There is a bathtub that has a cover that open and close. It's ridiculously complex actually. It's like a little robot. I mean, seriousness obviously encompasses the project a lot, but I can't help but think I laughed when you mentioned when Christopher, the client, asked, "We're gonna have handrails, right?" And you said, "I guess so."
No,
And
but
for some reason,
yeah.
I feel like there is some story behind it, having worked at OMA. And can you elaborate a little bit because I think that will bring out a lot of the real processes.
Yes, but going back to that specific frame, one of the tragedies of the project was that the client decided suddenly to unveil the project, I guess 12th of November or something like that. And he decided to do that in combination with a sort of award he got the day after from a university, Austrian university he used to attend. And this decision came like in July before, when it was obvious that the construction site could have never reached that the completion of the project on time. So the whole system was put under an immense pressure. And basically, so the frame you are talking about is when few days before this so-called opening, client arrived in Austria, and he was visiting the construction site, and basically he also realized that works were much far behind than what he expected. So, and in order to allow all the people invited for the opening, there was the need to install a handrail, but at that time it was only a temporary handrail, and the afternoon he asked me that question. I didn't know if the temporary handrail would have arrived on time or not. But definitely the project provided a fixed handrail, at least for the majority of the stairs. Only the part of the stairs, the last part of the stairs, which gives you accessibility to the top floor, covered by one of the two hatches. That only part misses a handrail, but all the rest of the stairs has one.
I think we all sort of laughed a little bit when we saw that part of the film.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, but it was really the cherry, on the cake. We were in such a struggle at that moment that handrail was really the least of the problems we had.
I can totally imagine it. Federico, I'm going to pry a little bit on your experience on this project because I think very little people realize just how much stress it is, you know, really to build architecture, despite it's a small house. And there's always kind of this beautifying of the architect, you know, in movies or in books or that myth. Of us all being kind of like beautiful and like smart and life is easy. What was the most crazy, stressful moment for you? If you can remember. Sorry, it's a trauma you probably had.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hope you can share a little bit
definitely.
of your trauma here.
I still hate the project for some reason. No, but basically, the biggest problem and the real struggle arrived the moment the client realized that the costs were increasing out of control, mainly due to the fact that Austria, as a building market, is at least 20% more expensive than the rest of Europe. And he, let's say, couldn't foresee that at the beginning. So at a certain point, he started asking me, okay, what can we do to lower the cost? So I suggested, due to the vicinity of the place to the Italian border somehow, I suggested that we could have relied for certain areas or certain specific items to Italian market rather than Austrian market. Also in light of a certain, let's say, rigidity of the Austrian people in let's say adapting in manufacturing something totally custom made, something that for which there are no certifications already done. So that house contains quite a lot of let's say unusual things made on purpose and custom made. So basically, that was the decision, which at the end reached a certain result, economically speaking, but on the other hand, created a devastating, difficult process on site, because there were Austrian companies and Italian companies, and personal relationships, language, communication skills, and everything made the whole construction site a real exploding site. Yeah, with trucks coming over from Italy, trucks
Oh, wow.
from Austria. The house is facing a very narrow, sloped road, so all tens of trucks every day arrived. They had to manage. There was a kind of a waiting list and a queue. But so everything couldn't be managed at the end. And as usually happened at the end, the construction site was almost a 24/7 non-stop process. So basically everything literally exploded. Yeah.
Oh my God, I think we can feel your stress from here. At one moment, I heard you speaking either Austrian or German in the film.
German.
Did you
Well,
learn? Did you learn because of this project?
no. I used to learn German when I was at school and at university.
I
So
see. That was quite impressive, I thought. Because one thing that for me, being in the context of Hong Kong, is to also see how international this project was. There were so
yeah.
many languages in it. And I mean, Federico is Italian. He's from Italy, and there are just so many different language and so many different people coming into working on this project. And that's definitely one of the most beautiful thing about architecture, I personally think. Silly question, but Federico, apart from seeing this house getting built, I'm sure that brings you a lot of joy that you're relieved from it. Were there any moment that you really felt like, oh, it's so good I'm doing this project, or it's just so amazing to be an architect, or, a moment of joy that you vividly recall that is probably not captured in the film necessarily?
Yeah, I would say yes. And but let's say in percentage, very little moments compared to, let's say, all the management of day-by-day activity. So, but for instance, there were a few talks with Ram about the projects, while we both realized certain aspects that you couldn't clearly see or realize, not even through drawings or models or anything else before, especially in terms of light effects and real proportions. So I remember with joy a certain, let's say, um, relief by preoccupations by looking at built things. As well as I remember a few other moments in which I was on site and dealing with the real people physically building it, explaining what the concept was like and why they should have done things in a specific way. And that's for me a real magic and fascinating and passionate moment. So when you talk to people with big hands or sweaty faces, they were barely talking Italian or German, somehow only through dialects or something like that. So let's say not university helicopter people, and you as architect has to explain them why things should be done from their side in a certain way rather than another way, and how is important for them to understand somehow the concept of the project. So that for me is really fascinating, and I really remember as dear moments.
Thank you for sharing that. It's something that also reminds me personally. Actually, that's a really great answer. Thank you. It is,
And
yeah.
yeah, and for instance, there is a frame in the France movie where you see towards the end the main space of the house filled with people, where one guy is almost slippering. So that kind of Babylon hell of a situation with people welding on top of each other. There were several languages, as you realized, but somehow also people there started also helping each other and supporting each other no matter what. So there were also hints of an extremely positive humanity. So and you see all these people working 24/7 under pressure, physically tired, but nevertheless they also somehow enjoy their work. And overall architecture depends on them, literally. So I really like that frame because it shows, as I said, that architecture is overall a human factor.
And thank you for bringing that out about that particular frame in the film, because for me, today's screening is almost kind of like another zoom out of that frame, if that makes sense. Because, of course, a lot of people come here because they want to see Rem Koolhaas' new house, right? But then I thought it was extremely important to have this conversation with you both, because Federico, you are a great architect, and I really look up to the work you have been doing at OMA, and just your personal value is so strong. But we are always sort of behind the scene when we're working at OMA,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And obviously people love the name Rem Koolhaas, and he is quite a genius in my own opinion. Learned a lot. But what we need to celebrate is also architecture is really about teamwork. And there's Federico, who has been working with OMA for so long. He has, go to Foundation Prada, you will see all his blood and sweat in there. And then also Franz, who is not necessarily just the filmmaker of this film. He actually participated in so much of the processes of all the amazing project at OMA, and he himself is actually part of the history of OMA. Some of the most amazing projects we have seen with these model images, he made it. So I wanted to take this opportunity to open up the floor for anyone to ask questions you have in mind.
Austria is very conservative. Well, appeared to be a very conservative neighborhood with traditional buildings. How did the local residents react to that building?
Yeah.
Federico. No, go ahead.
I was asking who this question was addressed to.
You,
Federico.
Federico.
Okay. But
But
please,
Franz, feel
you
free
can-
to chip in.
Yeah, both of you could answer.
No, so basically, the neighbors, people were somehow very negative about that house. And obviously, no one thought that that kind of house literally fitted in the surrounding. And somehow Austria represents a kind of, or at least that region, a kind of attitude for which the best we can do is to preserve and keep reiterating the same aesthetic as historically has been doing. While if you have the chance to look around, it's full of new houses, but simply built mimicking an old style. So personally, I find it really wrong and also conceptually not interesting. So overall, the house fits magically in the context, especially in winter, because it almost completely disappears due to the white color. But overall, in a way, the house reflects another category of interest, answering questions related to how could you build in a plot which has such a rigid rules of dimensions, of distances, of shapes, and so on and so on. So basically, that house is deeply the result of what the urbanistic laws imposed you. So in a way, that debate shows me that how many cliches and how much inconsistency and how much little knowledge there is around architecture, also among architects or people who supposedly are involved with architecture, because somehow the comments were all the same.
Franz, do you have a point of view on that? Because you were, in a way, behind the scene documenting all the time. Did you see the response of people in the village, or what's your point of view?
Yes, yes, I did, and they either kept themselves on a distance or said that it was very noisy, but then you heard that they yeah, that they found it difficult to connect with, and at the same time. I was staying in one of those houses mimicking the past, but oversized, of course. And the owner of the house, it was finished now, and was kind of proud that it was in his street. So something had changed when the building mentioned so, and I don't think that everybody will react that way. Already showing like there was this thing in the building where cultures clashed. I could have made a very interesting film on all the fights and the culture clashes through Federico. Um, but of course, the same goes here. It's another fight that architects fight, and sometimes they can choose to go with the past. Sometimes they can choose that the conservative approach doesn't really add something to the place, or and which clearly was the case here. But what I was going to say is this fight is to be fought always. So an interesting story there was that when the presentation was there to the city council, and correct me if I'm wrong, Federico, but to get all the permits to be able to go on. first Rem came personally, and then he decided to do the whole presentation in German. And there you see that cultural differences and respect for cultures is so important, that this is a story that the Austrian people kept telling. That he came there and he just presented everything in German, and so yes, it's important to fight the fight, to do your things, but also to make that connection, both to the context and to the people in the end. And I think that you worked really hard on doing this on that side as well. Even for such, even when being a radical in a way.
Yeah, but in a way, answering the question of the person in the audience, you can also recall to what in the movie one of the daughters of the owner said, saying that she was the least savvy person in the family, but basically the question for her was why this house has to be so much different and so much, and couldn't we just build something more modest or somehow normal. I always hated her for that piece of interview. But in a way, as we commented once with Ram at the dinner, basically that's the question that we asked ourselves more or less every time. So basically, in principle, that sentence from the daughter, as well as the answer from the lady in the audience, basically puts the finger to the right question. I mean, what is what we do as architect, basically, and how architecture is translated in certain shapes and forms rather than others. So.
I feel like, Franz, you can definitely make another film 5 years later, and just to also interview the daughter again, and also the villagers, and see whether the perception of the house, has changed. I'm sure it's because I think when Federico mentioned like how the house actually disappear in the winter in the snow, it is a very powerful statement by not being there. And that in a way, what's the role of architecture is also to make people understand there are different ways to do. There are many answers to the same question, if I might put it that way. And we all are seeking our own answer as architects. Are there any more questions from the audience? Oh, that's a lot, yay. Maybe the lady in the, maybe a lady in the front, yeah.
Thank you. So obviously this project is very unique, given the context and all that sort of stuff. But I'm just wondering whether there are themes which can translate beyond this specific project, and thinking particularly about Hong Kong and constraints that we face in Hong Kong around, size of plots, all that sort of stuff. And are there things that we can learn from this particular project as we reflect on things that are being constructed in Hong Kong?
I think the question also comes from, I was having a conversation with her earlier that our office is dealing with a plot that is 3.5 meters right now in the middle of the city that is completely tight and dense. And it has some resonance to this project, but it's in a completely different context. And we thought that was quite interesting, yeah.
Franz, please.
Okay. Well, as a non-architect, that is a difficult question, of course, but I think that for me, the first thing is to say that the challenge that Rem and his team saw in this, so the eagerness to do this with all the constraints and rules is interesting, and also gives way to solutions that you wouldn't think of otherwise. If you would just have the space and the freedom to do anything. So, so I think that also that's part of architecture, this play with rules and constraints that in the end devise something new, because again there's a fight which is leading to something. And I think myself, I don't know. I must say about Hong Kong architecture, but in both Belgium and Japanese architecture, you see this a lot. In Belgium, whereas in Holland, a large plots are owned by a social housing company. There's always lots of city planning that has a certain freedom to really work on an area instead of just one very narrow plot. And in Antwerp, every small plot is personally owned. So if something is being torn down, you are also stuck between two buildings with a space of just over 3 meters. And they over there, the city architect, they have they set up an organization to invite young architects to do this fight and to prove what they could, and they're a very interesting culture of high quality on very small plots has arisen of that, has come out of it. So so yeah, I think it's a great challenge. Go for it.
You have anything to add, Fede?
Yeah, for me, that project was interesting because it obliged basically you as an architect or simply as a person in basically deal with something you are naturally almost in an unconscious way against too. So basically we have, let's say, worked and designed and thought around something that initially we were spontaneously rejecting because the plot was too tiny, and except for the lake in front, the surrounding was extremely non-attractive or generic because of the presence of this fake historical architecture. You, in order to address all the program asked by the client, you had to go vertical. So basically, at the beginning, it seemed literally a constant struggle against what you would like. But so I thought that is something extremely interesting and important, being able to do also to act towards something you dislike. So it's not always the case that as an architect you have to do only what you like. So you should also be able to perform the moment conditions are not your own ideal ones.
We have a question from that gentleman. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, I'm Juan. I'm Betty's colleague. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us today. I have two questions. One for Frank and one for Federico. The first question is, I love the movie. I loved how is it like focus on relations. How is it not descriptive of the house itself? It's always like in the background. In fact, you only get to see the house like at the end, almost like ending credits. No, you see like the final product. And how do you see the empty site in the beginning? And I would like to know, when did you decide on this narrative? It was something that you already had. I mean, because the shooting looks very, very intentionally planned. I mean, like there are like cameras that are set up and there are like time lapses. But did you decide the narrative? You already had the idea of how the movie was going to be beforehand, or was it something that was like mutating through the process? So that's one question. And then the other question to Federico is that in the beginning, you were discussing about the concrete and about the importance of the concrete, and Franz was saying that perhaps that was the most important thing. And I would like to, could you tell us why do you think, I mean, do you think that is the most important thing, or and why? And could have been the house made out of any other materiality other than concrete? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so about the film and how, yeah, well, as of course it was set up as following the process. So, and at first I didn't have the idea that it would be a film to be shown at festivals and things, but more a document for the office and for the clients. But then I did have the feeling before I started that the visits to the site that I would do would best be in moments that both architect and client would be there, so we could hear more about their ideas, see something about the relationship. So that idea was there. And then when doing it, I considered that that yes, there had to be also real interviews in it, because the story became too interesting for me not to tell. And yeah, so it was a simple step up while working on the project in a way, and what I also found interesting, that actually it was very hard to see the house before it was finished. It was covered all the time against the elements, and so even if when you were walking around, you needed to know the plan and have your fantasy on what could be here, and that part of the process I thought was also interesting. In a way, I was very happy that it stayed under the covers until the last day before this opening that Federico told about. That was way too early, and only then the house was revealed. So so it was also kind of presented to me, given. Yeah, I hope that's an answer to.
Yes, thank you. Concrete.
Concrete, yeah. So in a way, the project aims to create basically only a sort of frame or a shell, considering that all the other ingredients or needs are provided by the view to the lake, by the light coming from the north. So basically, you literally, and due to the scale, you literally didn't need much more. So the idea of a mono material is a direct consequence of the concept as well as on the context. And in order to preserve the possibility for the house to blend with the landscape, especially in winter, as well as to create a very strong contrast in summer, the white seemed to be the best color choice. So in terms of material, in terms of building material, we reached the concrete partially for a structural reason, because although it might not look like challenging in terms of structure, from a structural point of view, in reality, the house is quite challenging, and there are structural engineering, structural solutions which are not that, let's say, common there are parts of the two long shear walls which are basically almost performing as a beam walls bared on few structural pillars only, and there are also huge cantilevering parts. So somehow concrete was also a direct answer and the only possible answer to the structural challenges. So at the end, concrete and white brought us to the conclusion of a white concrete. And it was also, let's say, a decision after RAM and, let's say, OMA, RAM, and myself, we had we built up our own know-how after the Prada Foundation tower, which is made of cast in situ white concrete. So we knew already what to look at and what to get exactly. But there again, Austria wasn't the easiest place for experimental projects and tests and so on. So the first samples of so-called white concrete were almost pale gray. So we had to spend a lot of time trying to make sure what we were looking at. I had to involve Italian companies trying to explain the recipe of the white concrete, because white concrete is not something you can get, let's say, on the market. You almost have every time to specify your own recipe according to also what kind of gravels, how much pigment, what kind of many other, let's say, components are nowadays making the concrete. So at the end, we reached a good result within staying into a reasonable price. So the white concrete cast in situ was basically the only answer possible due to all the collection of needs from our side or from the concept, let's say.
Thank you. I think we have one last question over there with the audience. Yeah.
Hi. We were wondering a bit about what the early conversations about the relationship between the building and the landscape were, particularly also that the film, as he mentioned before, is framed particularly at the beginning very much of the untouched land, and that even the poster I thought was interestingly the untouched land before the building is built for the film. So what those sort of early conversations were between that relationship of how the land would be treated and how the building would sit on and with it.
Well, I can say that it was, so the moment the project was formulated in its own more or less final configuration, which, as I said, prescribed an almost vertical building, 50% of which was dug into the ground. It was clear to us, at least, that not much of that plot would have remained intact. So basically, as you have seen from the movie, all the entire plot was deeply excavated. We have built the house and then we have put soil back again. So, which is something similar to any discussion about, preservation. You can decide for the most delicate refurbishment preservation project, but physically speaking, you always have to do a lot, although what you see is going to be very little. So there is always this kind of ambiguity between, the concept or the idea, as I said at the beginning of this talk, and reality. So we can say that the project sits in a very respectful way in the hill, and you see a very little building coming out from the earth, while in reality we have destroyed half of the hill to build it, and then we have put the soil back. So up to you how to judge it, but that's the reality.
That's fair, I think, the way you put it. Franz, Federico, do you have questions for each other, actually?
Uh, no, I just wanted to comment on that last question. That's also I don't I really like lots of drone footage, but here I thought I had to put it in because it shows that in a way nobody respects the landscape, but of course always the mountains are stronger than people. And that this house sits really respectfully in it and shows to be very small compared to the large apartment blocks that are on both sides of it. But also that that moment where you see this excavation from the sky, you see what a wound almost it is that has been made, but it's it's been brought back later and everything has become part of the mountain again. So, and I think to me the camera shown at the beginning that is just showing this, the view from the house is kind of the thing. The house sits there in this landscape where the weather is changing all year round, and it really interacts with that in an interesting and modest way, I think. Yeah.
No question for each other? Yeah.
I have a question to Franz.
Oh, yeah, great.
Knowing that he has collected over the time thousands of hours of registrations, interviews, and whatever sort of evidence of the process. If there was something that is not some frame, some interview or whatever, that is not at the end part of the final movie, but he was, let's say, particularly interested in.
Any arguments in your footages?
Yeah, no, it's difficult to say. It's more the moments that I didn't film in the end because I wasn't there with a camera or and one of these moments is yes, there has been lots of tension and fights, and the only thing that is a bit of proof is the moment where where what that Federica told about, that this very messy space you see with all people working in it at the same time, and that's almost the moment when the camera turns away from Federico and they talk about the handrail, where he's saying there's a problem we have to show you. This moment was so tense and everybody was so kind of on the edge that I decided to stop filming because I couldn't fit it anymore in this process film, because there is this moment I missed. There was a beautiful fight between two Italians where Federico was one of them. Which was really about the Italian crew with the truck holding up the process for the others for 2 days, and it became really very, very tense. And then 2 days later, on this opening moment, there was this talk. Christopher, the owner of the house, presented Rem, and then he presented Federico, and then something magical happened that I still, I'm still the whole building team that was there as well, they started applauding spontaneously, breaking up the talk of Christopher for Federico, where they had been fighting with him, for months, for over a year, and they applauded, and that was such a beautiful moment. That I was really sorry I didn't have that in all these thousands of hours, Federico. So,
Oh wow, thank you for sharing that. Great question, Fede. That must be a really incredible. Did you cry, Federico?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I didn't. I was still mad. I was still mad.
yeah, but I did.
Guys, thank you so much today for doing this. I'm so glad we have this amazing audience asking all these great questions here, witnessing this conversation. For me, it's extra special because you guys are, in a way, two heroes also in my life, seeing the work that you guys have been doing. Thank you so much. I would love to keep in touch with you guys to see whether there are other screening opportunity actually in Asia. I found this talk really, really mesmerizing, even for myself, hearing your real feelings, and your examples on how this house was being done. Thank you so much. I'll stay in touch, and thank you all also for being here today in a Saturday afternoon. I hope I can help to bring more contents of such to Hong Kong to you guys. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.